You've got the vision. Now it's time to build the foundation. The Success Launch Point gives you the coaching, tools, and strategies to grow your business with clarity and confidence. Learn from experts, master proven systems, and join a network of driven entrepreneurs. Your next level isn't a dream, it's a decision. Make it today. It's time to level up. Check out modernobserver.com/launchpoint.
Across America, our lives are protected by the men and women of our armed services and our first responders. We're here to explore the challenges they face and say thank you for your service. We are here with Laura Celly today, and we are going to look into her background and find out what it is to be a veteran. So, my first question to you is, what inspired you to join up?
Couple of things. The Desert Storm was going on at that time, and I was motivated to serve my country there. And I wanted to also get experience in the medical field. So I decided, well, there's an opportunity in the military at that time. And I also needed money for school. So those were probably the two main factors, what was going on in our country at that time. And then my need for my education, that I knew that was important to me. And also just to be able to survive and to be able to go on with life in a better situation than I was before. So the military, me joining the military, was just to do something better with myself.
Fantastic. So can you tell us a little bit about what basic training was like?
Now, that was very different than what I expected. At that time, the Navy had a combination of male and females in Florida. At the basic training. So my basic training, I had a male component company, another company that we were integrated with. They stayed on the floor above us, and we had the barracks below. So there was a lot of integration with both male and female. And so we were all together in training. It was a little tough, of course, the physical aspect of it. Although I was very athletic before, but even being athletic before was not, you can't compare it because you have someone screaming in your face. And that's a big difference than what I was athletic when your coach is cheering you on and your team is cheering you on. In the military boot camp, that's not happening. They're yelling at you. You're in an entire different atmosphere. It's very tough. If you've never been, I grew up with brothers, so I kind of knew, what to expect. And I did get a little bit of that yelling, before in my home with them. But definitely I was surprised. But I knew in a matter of time that it was going to get better as I got more seasoned, as I knew what to expect. So it was definitely tough. But like I said, we were integrated. We did training together, everything, picked up our uniforms together. So it was different than what I expected. They had told us they were testing out a new way to do basic training. Before, they were completely separate. This time we marched together side by side. So it was a good experience. It taught me a lot about, discipline and respecting your authority, or respecting authority, and just being responsible for yourself. You can not mess up when you're having your inspections. It's just not about you. It's the whole team that gets affected by it. So if your locker is unsatisfactory, it's your whole team. It's just not you. And that's what I liked. And I liked also, of course, the tough, hell week that they put you through. But you really rely on your team. You really learn how to rely on your team in order to get past this tough time. So definitely, it was a surprise to me, but I learned a lot during boot camp.
Fantastic. Now, you come from a family of folks that serve as first responders, as soldiers. Yeah, how did your family react when you told them you were going to join up?
Well, they were a little surprised because everyone else, like I said, police, fire. I did have an Army medic, reservist, and Air National Guard brother. So when I said Navy, it was a big surprise because in Texas, well, San Antonio, the beach isn't nearby. So there was no Navy exposure whatsoever. So it was surprising to them that I chose the Navy, and San Antonio, where I was born and raised, is a big Air Force town. And, more of my friends may have, opted for the Air Force because they knew the basic training was there in San Antonio. Everyone was kind of familiar with the Air Force base already, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. And everyone would say, well, it doesn't surprise us that you chose that because you want to go further away. And I did. I wanted to travel. I did. And that's what they say with the Navy. You can do that. So they understood why, but it was a little sad. I was one of 13 and the middle girl. So they wanted to keep their girls close, my parents, but they understood my motivation and wanting to see the world. So they accepted it.
Nice. And that was an opportunity that, the Navy provided for you. So when you first joined up, what was a typical day like? And how did that change over the time that you were in the service?
Well, of course, the typical day boot camp is early up, right?
Yep.
Reveille at 5 and, chow and then PT after that. And then the training, either a classroom training where you have to sit, for 2 hours and without, getting out. You don't like get to go for a bathroom break whenever you like. It's a designated time. So that was the training aspect of it, boot camp. But then when I transitioned to A school, it was a little bit more relaxed. At the A school, I went to a hospital corpsman school in Great Lakes, and I was kind of they would make fun of us because we stayed in the new barracks, the female core staff, and they called it the Hilton because it was such a nice barracks. It was a new building that they had made, a new barracks, so all the females mostly stayed on in that new barracks, and then the males stayed at they called it the Hojo, the Howard Johnson Inn, because it was very old, and they would be hanging out the windows. It was hilarious. This place was definitely. I think it's knocked down now. It doesn't exist anymore. That building has been demolished. But that was, the core school, and we were treated very differently in core school compared to the other A schools that were there in Great Lakes. We were the only school that was allowed to go on liberty in the after school, after our training courses. So, and there was a lot of other A schools that were very strict. And if you went off base and you had liberty, you still had to wear your uniform. Well, with the core school, it wasn't that way. They gave us a little bit more liberty because I think that, as corpsmen, you're in the medical field, and you have to hold yourself. We take a pledge. We do. We're in a different profession. So they really instilled in us that we were very that our education and our training was super important, so we couldn't mess that up. And they trusted us too by allowing us to go out and have a good time without having to wear our uniforms. And we had a little bit more freedom when it came to liberty and coming back into class. So it was not as strict as the other schools at that time. So we saw that they had treated definitely the corpsmen different than the other A schools. The nukes, all the other A schools that were there were on a very strict timeline. Where the corpsmen, we kind of could walk off and go have dinner at night and come right back. So it was very different. The A school was definitely a little bit more easier, and Great Lakes was a wonderful place. I used to walk up and down the train state, the whole, all the way up and down. You could run it where the trains were at from the base. It was beautiful. So I really enjoyed the A school training. Um, Met a lot of good friends. We ended up transitioning together to our next duty station. And in the duties, once you get to a duty station, it's a little bit different. It's your job, and you're assigned to a group. And at that time, I was not assigned. When you initially get there, that you're kind of like in a general group of new recruits when you get to a new duty station. So you might be doing general work. I wasn't working in my medical field that I was trained in. I was swabbing decks and cleaning kitchens, and some people were working at the galley, and I was very frustrated, and I said, I can't do this anymore, guys. I was trained to work in the medical field. Put me in the medical field. So it was about 3 months later that they finally put me into the hospital ward, and I worked in the general ward, and I really loved it. I worked as a in the pediatric ward, the hospital corpsman in the pediatric ward, and also I would get pulled to labor and delivery, and then to the general adult ward. So I had a good experience at my first duty station, and really seeing what I wanted to do in the medical field.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day duties were once you were assigned.
Okay, so once I was assigned to the pediatric ward, and we had a duty of like maybe 3 12-hour shifts on, and then you would have a couple of days off, and then you would go back on. And you would work whether nights or days. It just depended on who your lead corpsman was that created the schedule. And I mostly worked nights, being the lowest. I came in as a recruit, so I worked the overnight shifts most of the time. And we worked alongside with civilian personnel. So I worked with civilian nurses and civilian clerks, hospital clerks, and just different civilian staff as well. So I was kind of integrated at the hospital. My first hospital was at Charleston, and the Charleston Naval Hospital. And you had more freedom. You just had to make sure to show up for your job, and any extra duty. We might have had security detail on top of our regular job, maybe once or twice a week. We would have to like work the security detail, which might have been waving cars in at the gate, or doing some rounds around certain buildings. Just general security was our duty.
Nice. Well, hospital work, whether you're in the service or not, can be very stressful. So, can you tell us a little bit about what the difference was between the folks who were serving and the civilians you worked with? And also, did you have any kind of support system to help you through the challenges?
Oh, definitely. I see the difference with the hospital. I would say the civilian and the hospital staff, of course, was with who we reported to, and just the expectation also about being on time. And we had to stand up, of course, when the commanding officer, not just the lead nurse or the lead doctor of that shift, whereas they weren't the quickest ones to stand up, but of course we did, because we understood where what their position was. So definitely there was a difference between the civilian and the when it came to addressing the leadership. However, so they were also very supportive, though. They were also supportive of someone like me who just left my hometown, and it was my first time away from home for so long. And they become your family too. Whoever you work beside when you're in the military becomes your family. So if it's other military people, you bond. If it's civilians, you're going to bond just as well, because it is stressful. We would get pediatrician emergency situations where kids were being admitted in emergency situation from the emergency room, and so we had to prepare, get everything ready for them when they would come to the ward, and make sure that we assess them correctly, and that we have all the medical devices necessary to make sure that we can heal them, to make sure we can start working on them and make sure we're ready.
Were there any cases in particular that were memorable that, stands out in your mind?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. One of my toughest experiences working on the pediatric ward was when I had a baby, maybe about 1.5, no more than 2 years old, I would say. Definitely under two. He was very sick, and they didn't know he had these unknown fevers and dehydration. And when you have a baby, a young mother, a young soldier, they're very nervous. Everyone is nervous with the new baby, and when they're having fevers and they're having these unknown illnesses, it really is plain. And maybe the father may have been not even there; he was on a boat somewhere, so it was just a mom alone. So that was very stressful because we had to do a procedure, which is very common in the medical, when it's unknown fevers, they do what you call a spinal tap. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. They put a needle in your back to pull out fluid to see what it is that is making you sick. And me having to witness that and help the doctor do that and hold the child, and they're looking at you like, why are you doing this to me? You're causing such pain. I just, I didn't, my eyes just watered, and just tears just fell out of my eyes. But, I'm trying to stay composed because, I have to hold this child so they don't get hurt. And the doctor, does the procedure correctly. I'm there to support the doctor. So, I couldn't control it, just the tears, because that child was in such pain, and I was supposed to be there to help and soothe and make them feel better. So that was a tough situation for me. Right there was trying to to be tough for that baby and let them know that I'm here for them and that I'm going to make you better. But during that moment when you're having to do that spinal tap, it's not easy, and it's a lot of pain for them. And that to me was one of my toughest moments. And I realized, okay, I don't know if pediatrics is my specialty. After that, I had to really think about it, because children are very special, and they really are trusting, and they put everything, they really believe that you're there to help them, but they do get that white coat syndrome very easily. And when they see someone in that is there to help them, they fear, and you don't want that. But it is hard when they have to have something like a spinal tap or some kind of stitches or a procedure that or even just getting an IV. Sometimes when the babies are very sick, it's so hard to start an IV, and the parents are in the other room, and they thinking that we're just just terrorizing their child, when in fact we're trying to help. So that was definitely one of the times where that was a tough experience for me.
Yeah, I think most people over the last few years have come to understand a little more about the stress that doctors and nurses go through, especially
Hmm.
post-COVID. Between with what you were doing and the added discipline of the military,
Hmm.
how did you cope with the stress?
I had good friends. I will say that I had good friends that lived with me in my barracks. We would get away. South Carolina was actually a very beautiful place. The beaches were there. We would often drive up to Beaufort, which was a Marine Corps base that had beautiful. What do you call that? The parks and recreation of the military. They had some boat rentals and different things that you can take advantage of at a very low cost. And that's definitely what I would do with a group of friends. We might rent tents and go camping, because the area was so beautiful outside. The weather was mild. It was not as hot as Texas. So it was very nice to be outside. So definitely exploring the parks, the beaches in the area was one thing that we would do. The boardwalk, I think in Myrtle Beach was very popular too. And so that was something we would, if you had a long weekend that you could get away, that we would go with friends. Like I said, your colleagues who you're working with and who you're rooming with are all critical in order to make you feel, to help you deal with all that stress, to help you relax and take your mind off of the tough situations that you're in.
Nice. So, what was the most difficult part of your job that most people probably don't know about?
Mm. My decision to leave the military, that was the most difficult decision that I have ever had to make. I was very excited about being in the military, and I tried my best to go on different. At that time, they weren't allowing females on an LHD, and then later, after I got out, they made changes, and I found both with my specialty after I specialized in preventive medicine. So my opportunity at that time to really go on some kind of mission wasn't there. So I had a decision to make, and that had to be one of the toughest decisions was when I decided to leave. I was afraid that what am I going to do afterwards? I was fearful that, oh my gosh, am I making the biggest mistake of my life? I didn't even have a retirement. I was perfectly healthy, but I just wasn't getting advanced. I wasn't getting paid more, and I wanted more. I wanted, I had higher goals, and at that time they weren't. The recruitment was lower, and the advancement was not there. So that was a hard decision. No one knows. My family thinks, oh, I took off running to get out. No way. I really was contemplating. That was a tough decision for me to make.
You said one of the factors that contributed to your decision to leave was you couldn't go on LHD. Can you tell us what LHD is?
Oh, it's a style of Navy ship. It's a helicopter, landing pad that is on a ship. Also, the Harrier jets, the jets that just
Oh,
go and go across. They had started, besides the aircraft carriers too, they had females on it. But like I said, I had specialized in environmental health and preventive medicine, and they preferred male. It was a male dominated field at that time. But those kinds of ships were very recent, integrated into the fleet, and they started to allow females in my that were in my role on that ship. So there were very few billets though at that time. Now there's more ships like that, but it wasn't a full aircraft carrier. It's a little like a mini aircraft carrier. That's what an LHD is.
all right. So, how did your military training affect your sense of purpose and your sense of self? What did you learn about yourself?
Well, I definitely am a server. That's when I went in. I went in to help others, even in the medical part. There I went in to help those that were to save a life, and that was my intention was to go and help someone when they feel like they are dying, and go in there and give them what they need, the support, the medicine, whatever it is, to get them past that feeling and get them back on their feet and going. So definitely I could not draw myself away from that. Even today I'm still serving in some capacity and helping others, but that helped me solidify it when I continue to grow and specialize in the medical field. I could have easily gone to some other route, right? I could have switched my specialty. A lot of people did. They got out and maybe went to a more administrative role. But no, I that was for me, the medical field, and the helping and the serving and making someone feel better after something that they experienced that wasn't the best. So definitely that helped me solidify that I'm there for someone else, and I would look after or look over someone else, and put myself in on the line to make them better.
All right. So, what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about the military and the training you get, as well as the difficulty in coming out of the military and readapting to civilian life?
I feel like that discipline is important that we received, but I think that what people don't know is that we also have that other side of community. Without having your team, you're not going to go very far, right? So when somebody sees a hard charger come out and they're like, oh, that guy was in the Marines or Navy and hoorah, they're real tough, hardcore. They feel like they're going to do things by themselves, right? They may get that vision. Who you work with will say that's a tough guy, we're not going to work. They're thinking about themselves, when in actuality a military person, someone who gets out of the military, has always worked with the team. So being alone and being alone and then starting a new role uh, is is very scary, because you don't have that team that you went to training with. You don't have that collaboration or that camaraderie, because in a private sector, it's very different. You don't go sweat together, right? You don't get tortured together, and you don't miss your family together, right? When you go on deployments and you're going on assignments, you're away from your family when you're in the military. So when you get out, that kind of experience doesn't exist when you're in the civilian world, where you leave your family and you're going on a mission that you may not come back from. That stress level is not there, but the camaraderie is still important. And I feel that in the private sector, that could be very hard for somebody who's been in the military, that had such a strong connection with a group of colleagues that were together on the team, and now they're alone and they're trying to build that security or that community that is like them. So I feel that a lot of the ex-military do have that fear when they're getting out, that, oh my gosh, who am I going to hang with? I'm not going to have my lieutenant, I'm not going to have my chief. Those are your leaders, your parents away from home are your leaders. So that, I think a lot of people don't realize, that yes, military people are tough and they are disciplined, but they still need community. They still need a French, that camaraderie to be successful.
So to help veterans come out of the military, adapt to civilian life, what kind of support services do you feel are needed?
Well, definitely, when I left the military, when I was going through what they call the transitional stage, when you decide to leave, they do give you some training, some classes to prepare yourself. And some people are just sleeping in those classes. They're really not paying attention because they're like, I'm out of here, right? Well, I am that kind of person that listens in those classes. And, they using every tool that they give you, they're providing that to you for a reason. So there are a lot of organizations that can help you when you're leaving. You just have to you get that information. Make sure you make contacts before you leave, which is something that I had done before I even was discharged from the military. I found out where I was going to live, if I was going to go to school. There's some preparation. You just can't get your paper, your DD 214, and head out. No. You need to have a plan. So having that plan and discussing it with others that have done it already is critical when you're getting out. And I have, just because I wanted to land something quickly. I didn't want to be in limbo when I got out, because that could be scary for some when you're not working or you're not going to school, you don't have a direction. You might fall back into the same kind of situation you were in before you left the military. So you want to make sure that you have that plan, you set some goals during that transitional training that you're going through. Get that plan, set up those long-term goals. So that, is it that you want to finish school? Is it that you want to get a job? What kind of money do you want to make when you get that job? Set those goals so that you know what you're working for or what you're looking for when you're out. So definitely there were some opportunities, I guess, with different organizations, colleges, universities, vocational training. If you wanted to do something completely different, there were opportunities for some career changes, certifications that you could transfer from your military service. Like my degree, my C school training automatically gave me an associate's degree in environmental science. That's how much information that we learned during that. So upon my exit from the military, I received my associate's degree from the University of Phoenix in environmental health and sciences.
Fantastic. So, other than the sheer information that you got, how do you feel your time in the military changed you?
Oh, it changed me. How did it change me? Well, one, the discipline, of course, and knowing that there are achievable goals, but you gotta buckle down. And I think that a lot of young people just think that it's just going to happen to them. No, there's got to be a sort of a commitment and that grit, that hard work, that consistent hard work in order to get what you want. And I think in the military, when you're getting trained and you're even through boot camp or even through the training, the schooling that you go through, it's not easy. It's not an easy train, but if you make that effort, you're going to get through it. And in life, it's just like that. If you show up, you make that effort, you buckle down, you're going to achieve. And if I didn't have the military, I'm telling you, I was just hoping, oh, maybe my brother can get me into the fire department, or maybe my brother can get me into the police, or I could, I know somebody. You have to know someone. It's just not about knowing someone. It's about being able to push yourself and make that extra effort and buckle down. I think not enough people do that when they're struggling. They just want that easy route. No, it's not that way. And that's what I learned from the military. There are no easy routes. You got to work at everything that you get. You got to work at it. So definitely that's what I learned, that there's no easy way, that you are going to have to, really push yourself in order to get what you want.
Yeah, that's so true. So, what advice would you give to someone who's considering joining the military?
Okay, so I would advise someone if they could join the military after they have some education behind them. If they had their bachelor's degree, that would be great, because there's a big difference when you're an officer and enlisted. And that I didn't know going in. I figured that out when I got there. When I was enlisted, there is a big difference. You get better chow, you get better housing, you get higher housing rates. Everything is very different when you're enlisted and when you're an officer. And so that one, I would say, if you can get your bachelor's degree before you get in, and then that's something you still want to do, I would do it after you have your education. Now, in my situation, I went in without it because I didn't have any money for school. My parents had already helped four of my other brothers through state colleges, and they were, broke. Where there was 13 of us, so they had told me, we're not going to be able to support you like we helped your other siblings. So I had to make that decision. And I was like, well, I need money for college and I'm going to figure out if what I want to do. So if you need money for college, if you're in a situation like myself where you didn't have that financial support for your for university, I definitely recommend that. If you are in a situation and you're going to get clothed and you're going to get fed and you're going to get some good exercise and you're going to get some good training and life skills that you're never going to forget when you go into the military. So definitely it's an investment in yourself that it's only going to pay off in your future. So I am always recommending, if someone is uncertain about their future, that they consider that, because it's a good start. It's a very good start, and to life. I truly feel that it is a good start to life.
Excellent. So, what most people know about being in the military and serving actually comes from movies and television. How do you feel
Mhm.
about the portrayal of the service in the media?
Well, I guess it just depends on the timeline and when movies were made and things. Some, I think some now they're being more accurate, because I think there are some ex-military people now that are making movies, former SEALs that are training actors and actresses on the toughness of what military life is like. um I think the one thing that people forget about is the mental health load, or the mental that goes on an individual when they're away from their family and they are in a stressful situation. I think in some movies they just show like one guy that might be struggling in the military, right? In a tough military movie, there might be one guy that is struggling with his mental health, and in war, or in that situation that they're in, whatever it in the movies. But I think that there's more. There is a lot more when you're out there. It's hard, it's tough. A lot of people aren't used to being away from their families, aren't used to the area where they've been assigned, where they've been deployed. This is all new to them. So there's a lot of individuals that are going to struggle. They are going to struggle, and I don't think that a lot of that part of our training at that, at for me then, was not like, hey, you're going to face some people that aren't going to be able to make it. uh, but you do, when you're out there, you do. And it's that's where that team effort comes in, to try and help support those that are not as strong as you, or as strong as maybe your other colleagues. So, definitely that community comes into place. But I think that people don't see the actual struggle and the strength that it takes, the mental strength that it takes to be able to serve. um, you need to understand the situation that you're in is temporary, and you're going to be able to get out of this at some point. Your mindset is critical. Your mindset is critical, and I think that that part isn't portrayed as important. I mean, I have to say that, because I was stationed in San Diego, North Island, where Coronado, where Seal Beach, and the training happens. I had a lot of friends that were part of that SEAL training, and the ones that made it were the goofiest people, because they you had to see. I mean, the things that they go through. That when they go through the training, I mean, they get dunked into an ice cold ton of a thing of water, and they put like a thermometer up their butt to try and measure the so their body temperature goes on till they get them out. I mean, you have to go in there with a joking, like, your whole mindset is like, I'm gonna get out of this, and I'm not gonna let it bother me, but I'm gonna survive this, because I know I saw the other guy survive it. I'm gonna survive it too. So you have to have that strong survival mindset, that is not going to kill you, and you will move on from it. So I don't think, I think that is most important, is a mindset, and getting past this tough time.
All right. So, what do you think civilians need to know to provide better support for veterans who are coming out of the service?
Mm. Very good. There are many things. Just communication is key. um, Understanding. I think one thing I recommend, you know, is learning about your colleagues, your coworkers, either through like a DISC assessment or some sort of personality assessment, when you really find out how they work. And when you learn that about your team, and as somebody is formerly from the military, so there might be some things you might avoid, but just talking to them and getting to know them and figuring it out. How did you serve? Maybe noise is a distraction to them. Maybe noise isn't. Maybe certain kinds of food, whatever it is. It's just your typical relationship and communication bonding that everyone needs to have. And when someone is ex-military, everybody's experiencing different military positions are going to experience different things. Everybody, like, some is medical, some is computer, some is nuclear techs. Everybody, there's certain jobs, and every specialty is different. So when you find out you're working with a person, you have to ex-military, you have to know that they committed a lot. They committed their life. They took on an assignment when a lot of other people didn't. And so you have to understand that they are a committed individual. And finding out more about them and what makes it easier to work for them is critical in knowing, not being afraid of engaging with an ex-military person. There's definitely some tough personality traits from there. Well, they're a little tough, but they also need that community. They need that camaraderie in order to be successful. So definitely, when you're working alongside of somebody that was in the military, building that camaraderie is important. Listening and communicating, finding out what it is, what their behavior type is, so that y'all can so you can work together and be successful together. That's very important.
All right. Before we wrap up, is there any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Oh, I'm so happy you're doing this. I think that there's a special population of people who serve, whether it's first responders or active duty personnel, reservists, air guard. It's a special population of people who can put their life second to carry on and help someone else. So definitely, when you ever need a first responder or active duty, when you meet someone like that, know that it hasn't been an easy road for them, and that they've always been serving for someone else first. And whether it's the country and their freedom, the freedom for the supporting their country, or it's supporting their community as a fire or police to keep everyone safe and healthy. So they're thinking about someone else always. So definitely, that's what I would say. If somebody you run into is military first responder, they're not thinking only of themselves. They're thinking of everyone else also.
That's a fantastic message. Well, Laura, thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, Eric. It was a pleasure, and I hope to see you soon.
You've been listening to Thank You for Your Service on the Xvadio Podcast Network. You can catch every episode as well as the rest of the network at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. We'll see you next time.